Greetings everyone, this is episode 54 of the Sprue, and in this video we'll finally be wrapping up the T-72 build by constructing a diorama, and that's up next. This build is actually stretched over 5 months, and it's been a long road. We constructed the T-72 as well as the figures, and finally we're at the favorite portion of any build, diorama construction. But first, a word from the sponsor. Guys, as you know by now, this build has been sponsored by Supernova Studio here in South Africa. They kindly sponsored me with the T-72 kit, and you still have the opportunity to order this kit at a discount, so do stick around for the promo code that I'll be supplying at the end of the video. My plan for this diorama is to have it set during the invasion of Kuwait prior to Desert Storm, and there's plenty of reference pictures available online of desert highways in both Kuwait and in Iraq. Some of the things I'll be using, you know by now that I like to use these MDF trays. They are relatively cheap and easy to find in craft stores here in South Africa. I'll also be using some construction foam, this one being from Green Stuff World, a 30mm thickness, constructing the road surface from that. Next are these concrete barriers from Fallout Models. I painted in detail those in the previous video, and this one I'll show you where they go. I'll also be adding traffic signs from Mini Art, this being from Kuwait 1990. Very appropriate for this build, and a very nice set indeed. I'm a big fan of Mini Art. I'll also be adding a steel highway barrier from Meng. Very nice kit, and this will also go into our diorama build. And then finally we need to add textures, sand and asphalt, and for that I'll be using two products from AK. These are acrylic pastes, and one is desert sand, the other one is asphalt. In order to create a realistically cracked road surface, typically that one would find on a desert highway, I'm going to use this product from Ammo MIG, Quake, and I'll show you how I did that. I like to plan my dioramas on paper. This is really just to get my head around where exactly to place all the different elements, and to make sure that I work with a plan in a logical manner. First thing I'll be adding is this nameplate that I had made for this diorama. Very nicely made by a friend here in my hometown. There we go, name tag over there. And next the tank. It won't really work in a completely square position. We have to turn it sideways. There's a lot to add to this diorama. And that position seems to be fine. There we go. I'll be adding the concrete barriers at the side there, similar to my reference pictures. There we go. Make sure it's positioned correctly. Next, the steel highway barrier. That will be by the side, more or less there. Let's mark that position. We'll also have a road sign, indicates Kuwait City. There we go. And then finally the road surfaces. The first one being this section over here. That will be asphalt. And next to it the sand for the embankment next to the road. There we go, guys. That's the planning for our diorama. Let's get started. First step to do is to paint that MDF tray. This will be the base of the model, and I just used ordinary spray paint from a rattle can for that. Next, I'll need to shape this foam into the roadside landscape, and I mark the sections that I need to cut out. It will be this section over here, the corner basically, just for that steep embankment by the side of the road. I used this foam cutter, and I cut sections from that foam at an angle for the sand, for the section next to the road. Of course, this can be sanded, and I used the coarse sander just to smooth the cuts that I'd made with the foam cutter. This creates a lot of dust, and I'll be working with paint later, so I make a point of keeping my workspace clean. There we go, guys. This is now ready to go on a thinner section of foam, just to tidy things up. Of course, the nice thing about working with foam is that you can pin things in place, and the glue along with the pins will keep it in one solid piece. Next up, primer. In this case, I used a Desert Tan primer from Vallejo, and this was brushed onto the foam just to provide a primed surface for all the products that we'll be adding next. This is ballast from Pro Art Scenics, basically just some crushed stone, and I'll be adding this to the sand as part of the scenery, basically left over from the road construction process. This will roll down that slope and settle at the bottom. I now use the desert sand paste from AK. This product is very easy to use. Just apply this with a palette knife to the diorama base, and it's very easy to get this stuff in place. I actually used my gloved hand there just to spread this. I now add the ballast to the uncured paste, and whatever that is we need to remove. There we go. I now use a moist brush and set these little pieces of rock into the paste. And there we go. First step done, and we can move on. Next, I'm going to add some shading with sand yellow from Vallejo, and this is airbrushed onto the edges and specific portions of the sand, just to give it a little bit of color contrast. Next, I want to create the cracked asphalt on this highway surface. For that, I'm going to use Quake Crackle Creator from Ammo Mig. This is a new product, and in this case it worked extremely well. Now, because this is my first time working with this product, I did a quick test on these pieces of foam just to make sure that I understand how the product works, and with that confidence I was able to go ahead and apply to my actual diorama. And this is carefully applied with a palette knife, and I let it set for 12 hours. Guys, this stuff is really magic. I mean, look at that beautiful effect we have going on right there. That is the exact effect that I was looking for. And we've got our cracked asphalt surface for our highway. Next is the rest of the highway surface. I'll be using asphalt. And in this case, I darkened it a bit with solid black, just so it matches the color of the crackle that I'd applied. This is now evenly applied to the diorama base with a palette knife, and you'll see I'm wearing gloves because just like real asphalt, this stuff will stain all your clothes and anything it comes in contact with. To give it that realistic texture, I used the sponge technique just to smooth this into the base. After leaving this to set for 24 hours to dry, this is the result. Certainly happy with that. In this case, I sanded down the coarse texture of this just to get a little bit of a smoother texture on my highway, on the road surface, and you can see the result. And I can now start applying paint. In this case, I used 4 different paint colors to get a realistic road surface on my diorama base. The first being a NATO black, taking care not to overspray onto the sand. Next was dark sea gray, just to add some lighter sections, basically where all the tires are running. And up next, smoke. This is a very useful color from Vallejo, and when used in the proper manner, This can really give a nice dirty sort of a look to the road surface. In this reference picture, you can see the road texture, the road surface, and this is exactly what we recreated in scale on our diorama base. Certainly happy with that. Next, some oil stains. I used fuel stains from Ammo MIG, and this is now carefully dripped in specific spots on the highway, similar to what one would find in the real world. There we go. The road surface is certainly coming along. This is still a bit shiny. I will dull this down later with a gloss varnish, but there are the colors that I used for that. Next, I need to construct the highway barrier, the steel barrier. This is a very nice detail piece from Meng, and I ended up using different alclad colors just to get that metal finish on that barrier. This can now be positioned by the side of the road, more or less there. And once I have the positions marked, I use ultra glue and just sink these posts into the diorama base. There we go. Certainly happy with that. And the barrier is done. Next, I wanted to add some tufts of grass, and I thought it would be cool to have a little tuft of grass growing through this cracked surface. These are the tufts that I used. I ended up using the dry tufts, and with a little spot of glue and a set of tweezers, these can be positioned in the correct places. There's the one growing in the cracked asphalt. I also added more to the side of the road there around the post. And I then discovered that there's a large open space that will need something. And for this, I wanted to have a fuel drum that was half buried in the sand. And I used this very nice resin drum from Vallejo Scenics. Of course, this will need to be cut in half. And for that, I used my Dremel tool. Now, guys, when you're going to cut resin like this, please wear a respirator. You do not want to inhale this dust. And using the cutting wheel on my Dremel, I cut away a section. There you go. This is now the correct shape to go into the diorama, half buried in the sand. With this done, all I needed to do was to add some rust color to this using both my airbrush and the sponge technique. I think I used 4 different rust colors for this. And with the part painted, it can finally be placed on the diorama base. I now used more tufts of grass, just adding that, making it look more realistic. There's our half-buried barrel. Next, some more stone, some more ballast. And this is now added to the bottom of that embankment. First using some ultra glue from Ammo MIG, and then placing the stones in the correct position. Different sizes, different shapes, all in a random pattern. Next, I used Middle East Dust pigment, also from Ammo MIG. And I proceeded to brush this onto the diorama base. Using a broad brush and just carefully brushing that pigment into the base itself. I'll also need to add a good amount of pigment to the stone, to the bottom of that embankment by the side of the road. And if at first you don't succeed, use a bigger brush. That certainly sped things up for me. Now next are the road sign set from Mini Art, and I really love the detail on this roadside sign. There are the posts, little screws, everything keeping it together, beautifully detailed part. This was assembled, the standard road sign that we all know. I think these are pretty much used everywhere in the world. Once this was painted, I added some light rust, just in select places, just to get a little bit of added realism to that road sign. The signage itself is printed on decal paper, and I decided on the center one on this sheet. Of course, this kit supplies both decal signage as well as once printed on paper. Very useful set this for any diorama builder. The decal, of course, is applied in the normal manner. I used a micro set and micro sol, something that is well known to most modelers. First preparing the surface of that road sign, and then carefully positioning the decal on the part, similar to what you're seeing right there. I really had no issues applying these decals. Sometimes decals are troublesome, but in this case these ones from Mini Art worked very well. Highly recommend it. Next up, some weathering. I broke out the oils again and just added some streaking effects to that road sign. Again, a well-known technique. Most modelers are well aware of this. First applying the oil paint, and then using some odorless thinner and a broad brush just to apply the streaking. And this will give a very realistic look to that sign. There we go. Fit it onto the diorama base, and this is certainly coming along. We've got a little stretch of desert highway, and we are well on our way to creating this diorama set prior to Desert Storm. Next, some roadside garbage. I chose these cardboard boxes, soda boxes, as well as some styrene bottles that I had in the stash. Some plastic bottles. That little Coke can is also something I had left over from a previous build. It's positioned in place with Ultra Glue from Ammo Meg. And then finally another good dusting with Middle Eastern dust pigment, just to blend it all into the diorama base. I also at this point applied some pigment to the model itself, especially that big searchlight. That's way too clean to be realistic, as well as the wheels and tracks of the T-72. Guys, the next step was to detail and fit these concrete barriers from Fallout models. That's something I covered in the previous video. I want to encourage you to do watch that video. It was such a fun exercise to paint these, and they certainly complement the diorama base very well. There you can see they are in place, and that's another level of realism that's added to this build. So this is the state of progress. The diorama base is now basically finished, and all that remains for me is to add the model. Before doing that, I'll need to place the foam on the MDF tray that I prepared earlier. This is glued in place. There we go. And I can now also add the model, glue that in place on the road surface. Guys, and there we go. After 5 months, this is the result. I am over the moon with this result. I enjoyed every single moment of this build. This was really one of those builds that gave the opportunity to try every trick in the book, and I love builds like this. Everything figure painting down to sculpting things from Milliput. Certainly a lot of fun was had, and thank you to my sponsors for giving me the opportunity to do this, to Lindy and to Quentin. And my goodness, I certainly enjoyed this, and I hope you guys enjoyed following along. Guys, now this is your last opportunity to add this kit from Das Werk to your stash. If you're in South Africa and you use the promo code OFFTHESPRUE, you will get an instant 200 Rand discount. So do make use of this opportunity to add this wonderful kit to your stash. This is a list of all the products that I used, all the scenic elements. You'll see the ones from Fallout models at the center there. And as always, all the paint and the detailing products that I used, available from all good hobby shops. Guys, this brings us to the end of this build. Thank you to everyone who followed along. Special thanks to everyone who's sent me messages on Instagram. Thank you for your feedback. I really appreciate it. All the kind words. There are 2 galleries of pictures on Instagram right now of this build. If you'd like to see some, if you are interested in seeing more of this build, I've added 2 galleries of pictures on Instagram. It's available right now. and do enjoy that. Guys, thank you for following along. This is definitely not the last build, and I hope to see everyone in a future video when I'll be doing some more of these diorama builds. Thank you for following along.